What's going on, guys? My name's Jeff and this is Mad Hatter's Reef, and today we're going to be talking about water movement in the Waterbox aquarium. I hope everybody is having a fantastic day, and today we're going to be talking about water movement in the Waterbox aquarium reef tank build type thing. But before we jump into that, this is where I talk about everything reef tank related. So if you love reef tanks like I do, make sure you smash that subscribe button and don't forget to mind the bell. So when we started this build, I asked you guys what I should do for a Powerhead. I went back and forth on some of the suggestions that you guys had made on that video. Predominantly, you guys pushed for the Neuro 5. And it would have been great to have a build that had a very clean transition between equipment, but that's not how I roll. That's not my style. I recently had done a video for Premium Aquatics where we took a look at the Max Spec 300 series pump, and I absolutely love this Powerhead. So I bought it from Premium Aquatics. And the great thing about doing all these product reviews for Premium Aquatics is that they get my money because I buy a lot of the stuff that they give me to do videos on. So that's what we're going to be putting on the Waterbox aquarium. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at that pump. All right, guys, so here is the Max Spec XF330, and I did a video which is a little bit more in depth than what we'll go into here for Premium Aquatics, and there's going to be a link down in the description below if you want to check that video out. This is a very strong pump, and it's ideal for aquariums that are 25 to 100 gallons. So it's a very broad spectrum that this Powerhead will cover. It uses 5 to 35 watts and can move up to 2,350 gallons per hour. So it is a very strong little pump. I'm not even sure if I would have considered this pump if I hadn't done the review for Premium Aquatics, but ultimately this pump can push out some serious flow. And when it comes to water movement and reef tanks, that is a very fickle subject that I'm hoping I can make very simple for you in this video. Water movement in reef tanks is very, very important. It's going to help promote health within your corals. It's going to keep your water gas exchange where it needs to be, and it does a lot of things for your tank. You got to consider where these animals are coming from when you're thinking about water movement and flow. And the general rule of thumb when it comes to reef tank water movement and flow is 20 to 45 times the tank volume. And to figure this out, it really depends on a few different things. And you need to ask yourself, when you set this tank up, what type of corals you're going to keep. Are you going to keep soft corals? Are you going to keep LPS corals? Or are you going to keep a SPS dominated tank? The answers to these questions is going to point you in the right direction. If you were going to be keeping nothing but soft corals, you would take 20 times the tank volume, and that's going to give you the parameters of water movement you're going to need for that tank. If you were going to be keeping a mixed reef tank, you would take 30 times the tank volume, and if you were going to be keeping a SPS dominated tank, it would be 45 times the total tank volume, which is going to point you in the right direction for how strong of a Powerhead or pump you're going to need for your reef tank. So let's take a look at what we would use for calculations depending on what type of tank that we were going to have. Let's say we're going to have a soft coral tank. We would take 20 times the tank volume, which for the Waterbox is 44 gallons, which is going to equal 880 gallons per hour. So that is what we would be looking for in a Powerhead. If we were going to be having a mixed reef tank, we would be taking 30 times our water volume of the Waterbox, which is 44 gallons, which is going to equal 1,320 gallons per hour. And lastly, if we were keeping an SPS dominated tank, we would take the 45 times the 44 gallons, which is going to equal 1,980 gallons per hour. So what would you do with that information? What you do is you take that 1980, you divide it by 2, or however many Powerheads you plan on having in your tank. And just a tip, the more Powerheads that you have in the tank, the better off you're going to be, because ultimately this is going to evenly distribute the flow and water movement of your tank, and it's going to make a much more balanced environment. So let's say we want to keep that SPS tank, which equals 1980 on the Waterbox, and we divide that by 2 pumps because that's what we're going to put in the tank. And that equals 900
90 gallons per hour is what we're shooting for those power heads. Now, ultimately, you don't want to have a power head that is only going to be able to move that at max. You want something that you can dial back a little bit, so you're going to extend the life of that power head. Now, I'm not following my own rule very well. I only have one power head in the tank, and that's great for starting out, but this is a much more powerful power head and really has the ability to deliver all of the water movement requirements that I need for the Waterbox build. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea how to go about figuring out what you need for water movement in your reef tank. And if you have any questions, make sure you ask them down below. So this is what I've settled on for the pump for the Waterbox build. So let's take a look at how I went about setting it up in the tank.
All right, so I have the controller for the MaxSpec 330, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mounting it very similar to what I have mounted in the stand so far. It does have this mounting system on the back that actually is meant to be screwed into place. This is supposed to go into the wall, then that goes in the back. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to leave it in place to kind of create that separation from the heatsink to the mounting bracket. Then take this Velcro that I've been using on a lot of this so far. I have it cut to size. I'm just going to put it in that little block right there. Hopefully it's going to hold it in place for me. I'm going to try to do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. And from what my experience has been so far, is this has been more than enough Velcro to hold pretty much anything in place, even when all these cords are going to be hanging off from it. I will say though that even though that this Velcro is pretty awesome, it is kind of tricky to get that backing off. The only thing I'm really concerned about at this time is I know that Velcro has pretty much proved itself at this point where it's holding these in place very well. But I am going to put some type of cover over the sump in this section right here just to prevent anything from falling in there that really shouldn't fall in, because that could be a really bad problem. So currently I have the S1 hooked up in the sump and it's connected to the flex tubing which Waterbox provided. And the one problem that I have found with this hose is it works absolutely great as far as what Waterbox designed it to be. But for the S1, it was a little bit tricky to get that installed. So that little piece of PVC pipe I had to put into the top of the S1. So what I needed to do was take the PVC pipe, I cut a small little piece, put it in the top of the S1, and then heated the flex tubing and then put that onto the PVC pipe. But ultimately I got it in there and it's ready to go. So I'm thinking that the S1 is probably going to be a whole lot of pump for this little tank, but that's going to help reduce the need for power heads. I'm going to be able to use this return pump to add some additional flow to the tank, which is ultimately going to reduce the need for more power heads. So the salt that we're going to be using in the Waterbox aquarium is the Pro Reef salt from Exotic Reef Imports. Those guys sent me this bucket a while ago to try out, and I thought I'd use it on the Waterbox build. I've been meaning to do a video on this stuff for a while, and I'm finally getting to use it on the Waterbox build, so pretty excited about that.
Alright guys, so we're finally at that point where we're adding water to the tank. I mixed this stuff for about 2 days before I added it to the tank. Not necessary, but I just wanted to let it settle a little bit before I added it. And we're there. It's finally time. We finally got water. I was really blown away by how easily that salt mixed up. It's actually probably the fastest dissolving salt that I've ever used. I was very impressed with it. And as far as the Waterbox itself, completely watertight. There was no leaks whatsoever, and really was just like a one shot and done deal, which is a load off, because ultimately there's always that little bit of panic. Is this going to be watertight when you're filling up a tank for the first time? And there was absolutely no problems whatsoever. Everything worked out just the way that it should. And here is the tank less than 24 hours later. The water is absolutely crystal clear, and that Powerhead is moving some serious water. And I am very impressed with how clear that glass is on this tank. It is absolutely breathtaking. Very happy with where we're at right now. We have a couple more things that we need to do before we can start getting livestock in the tank, but we're getting closer, and that is awesome. I need to get some lights on the tank and get the cycling going on this tank, and we will be able to add livestock very, very soon. I did have to turn the max spec down just a little bit, down to 60%. I have it on constant mode, but it's not blowing the sand everywhere, which has made me very, very happy.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you guys for joining me. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this one, make sure you hit the thumbs up. That's going to do it for today. But don't fret, because there's plenty more Mad Hatter Reef videos to go around.